if I wanted to roll a slab out of clay that was not already wedged. For example, this clay. I'll show you a few methods to do that. So if it comes like this, we need to rework it. So I'm going to wedge the clay and get it ready to go. And from here comes the noisy part. I'm going to slam it down on the table until it kind of becomes like a pancake. So this is a good place to start. It's relatively flat. And now what we have in lieu of traditional clay tools, we have just some rulers, and they kind of give you a guide to help you find the correct thickness for a slab. So I'm just going to line my rulers up on either side of my clay, and we like to improvise here. We have a PVC pipe rolling pin instead of a regular rolling pin. They work the same. And I'm just going to roll this out just like you would do with like sugar cookie dough. The more wet your clay is, the more your clay is going to want to stick to the rolling pin. This clay is relatively dry, so as you can see, it's kind of starting to crack on the edges, which might be problematic for the purposes that we're doing here. Alright, so we have a basic slab right here. This tool is called a rib. We use it for smoothing out clay, so if you have some textures in there you don't really like, you can scrape them off with this rib tool. So doing this with the rib really gives you a nice, clean, smooth surface to start with. Alright, now if I wanted to roll some texture into this slab, it's really important that I do it before I cut my slab. So here I have a texture plate, and I would want to use this before I cut the shape that I want. So it doesn't really matter what side you use at this point. I'm just going to kind of press down lightly to make sure that the plate stays where I want it to go. And then when I roll, I want to start in the center and then kind of push outwards. I'm using a medium amount of pressure. I'm not like leaning into this too hard, otherwise it's really hard to get these plates off of the clay. But you want to have enough pressure that you actually get some texture. And I think it should be in there pretty evenly. What I'm going to do is very gently peel the plate off. You don't want to go too quickly, otherwise it might rip out chunks. So as we can see here, we have a nice texture rolled onto the slab. So at this point it's important to make sure you aren't touching this a lot, otherwise the texture is going to kind of fade away if you go too much with it. So I will hold my ruler in the place where I would like to cut, and then I'm just going to use a butter knife. If you're using something with canvas like this, you want to make sure you don't use the serrated edge. You want to use kind of the blunt edge so that you don't cut a hole through the canvas. So I'm just going to cut these pieces off. Sometimes you might pull the clay, so if that's the case, you kind of need to push it back with your finger to keep it in place. Alright, and here we have a nice start to a tile. So if you are working in a place with a lot of different artists and you need to make sure that you don't lose your artwork, it's a very good idea to very gently flip this over and carve your name into the back of the tile right away. Don't want to forget, otherwise you might lose it. Especially if there's nothing on it, you're not going to know that it's yours. So you can use a needle tool, modeling tool, whatever you have on hand. So now we have a nice name, we can flip it over, and you're ready for the next step.